You are listening to the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast, where you discover management insights and strategies for your successful dental practice. There are also interviews with key people in the industry who have advice and services to help you and your team achieve great success. Welcome to this episode of the Julie Parker Practice Success Podcast, and I've got a returning guest today, and she's become quite a trusted friend and ally in the space of helping dental practices be more successful. Welcome, Lyn Carman.
Thank you, Julie. Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honour.
You're glorious, and we're talking about something wildly important and interesting for the industry, and that is dental recruitment and your company, Lync Dental.
Yes, thank you so much. I kind of shudder a little bit when I hear the word recruitment. It's something that I'm working on and I have to get over. Recruitment has all these connotations of being incredibly expensive, not working, and I don't want to do a disservice to anyone in recruitment because, oh my gosh, I take my hat off to them and have so much respect for them. So yes, Lync Dental is all about recruitment. I kind of want to use the word matching and connecting, a connection agency rather than a recruitment agency. So I'm just disclaimer, I don't have a background in recruitment. I haven't done any training in recruitment officially. So my background, as you would know, is clinical. Clinical predominantly for most of my career as a dental hygienist, and then practice ownership. So I was able to see both sides of it. So just wanted to kind of, as soon as someone says recruitment, I go, but I'm getting used to it because that's what it is.
Well, I actually really like the matching and connection agency. I reckon that's fantastic because it is it's less about just filling an empty seat with a warm body, and it's more about making sure that you are connecting people. I love the word connection there. You are connecting people that are truly designed to work well together.
Yeah, absolutely. And okay, which tangent do I go off on here? Because I think the days are gone. The landscape has changed, not just in the workforce and recruitment, definitely in dentistry. I think people who are working across broad sectors probably would say it's no different in dentistry than it is in anywhere else. But I beg to differ in that we are a really, really unique group of individuals, professionals, amazing admin staff and support staff that have really unique challenges that no one else has. And it really strikes me, or has struck me in the past, that we lend our most important asset, or our recruitment of our most important asset, to public and very generic ways of searching. And I say that word very deliberately, searching for our team members. I think it's too important to leave to generic and non-specific public sites. Having said that, the generic, non-specific, very public sites that we do use have a really, really broad reach. So we kind of need to work with them as well, There's no way that we can go up against, anyone can go up against the power of the reach that some of these companies have. So I'm not going to mention any names.
Can I mention one?
Sure you can.
I'm imagining it's like things like Seek and Indeed, these sort of online platforms where you jump in there, throw a job ad in there, pay a few $100s, and then you get a raft of random applications come through.
Yeah, absolutely right. And sometimes it's hundreds, sometimes it's thousands, and you pay for what you get, obviously. So they have different products, and as I said, I don't think we can do without them. They have the big, broad, wide reach, but I do feel that we do need something that's specialised, that understands our area and really can address the issues that people in our profession are having, the industry are having.
When you were speaking earlier, it kind of brought my mind to a dating website, like I'm imagining being single, if this is a good analogy, being single and putting your ad out there, looking for a date, looking for a relationship, and then just kind of grabbing anybody that seems pretty good. Once they're in your life and you're sharing your time with each other, that's when you go, what the hell was I doing? Why wasn't I more specific, or why wasn't I more selective with who I chose to bring into my world? And it feels like the Seeks and the Indeeds of the world, the old traditional way of that word recruitment, is about that. It's just like, well, just who seems best out of the bunch, let's give them a bill. But it's only when they're with you that you start going, gosh, as a team member, they're impacting my everyday life, and now I'm kind of stuck with them for a period of time. I've got to make the best of a bad situation. And that seems to be where Lync Dental are doing things completely different. And it is more that connection service, that let's make sure that you are properly aligned with a whole bunch of stuff, not just because you filled that role in the past and therefore you've got that role open, so jump over into that practice.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that metaphor because it reminds me of something that Brene Brown was sharing about, when you go into a relationship, if you have very little information and you're just, kind of attracted to a particular facet of another human being, quite often you'll say things like, oh, do you love that song? Oh, I really love that song too. And, oh, do you? That's fantastic. Or, I really like that food because you like it too. And you want to impress, you want to like, and you want to feel like you belong and connect with that person. Sometime down the track, when you actually understand a little bit more about what they value and what's important to them, they might put that music on the radio, every Saturday, and you're eventually going, do you know what? Can you turn that off? Like, that really irritates me, that music. Oh, but I thought you really loved that. I thought that was your favorite. Well, no, I never liked it really. I actually just, said that I did so that I could, we could get together. And then they serve up your favorite food, or what they thought was your favorite food, and, similar situations. So the metaphor is really powerful, because if you don't know what's important to that person, if you don't know what they value and where they want to go with their life in that situation, but in their practice, in our situation that we're talking about, we have no idea what we're actually connecting with. So yeah, I think that's a great metaphor. And it's really funny because when I first, so 3 years ago, when Lync Dental was in its, really organic early stages, I wanted to create something like Dental Tinder, which was the concept was that, we need to be able to connect in a different way other than throwing a resume up on Seek or anywhere else. And I went to a couple of places and I was doing some training around speaking and pitching and the kind of things that you do when you want to get a new product out. And I was in a non-dental audience, and I said it's for oral health professionals and Tinder in the same sentence. And I had to be really, really careful, because people came up to me afterwards and said, what exactly do you do? Like, oral, I heard, and Tinder, I heard. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, no, hang on a minute. Let's take a couple of steps back. So I think the metaphor, yeah. So I think the metaphor fits perfectly. Thank you.
And it's interesting. I know this is kind of go off on a bit of a side bit, but while we're in that moment, when we're saying, oh, do you like that song? Yeah, I like that song too. Oh, do you like that food? Yeah, I like that food too. And I've been present in so many job interviews where the employer is interviewing the candidates, and the candidates said, oh, I really like this as part of, a really happy team that, that just get along. Like, oh yeah, we have that. Yeah. No, we have that. And I'm thinking, no, you don't have it at all. And so there is that inclination, just as that intimate partnership, there's the inclination when you just want to influence someone to come and work for you. How often have you seen that roll out too, where they start promising things that you've observed that practice and you think that's actually not the case, or I'm not quite sure if, even if you wanted to introduce, I'm not quite sure you could introduce that on a consistent basis. Therefore, keep that promise, that assurance that you're giving to that candidate.
Yeah. All the time. And, that's, I don't want to keep using those big public sites as examples, because it happens everywhere. It can happen on anywhere that's advertising a job, but there's very generic terms that we use, like want to have a collaborative team, team focused, patient focused. There's all these, and we all know them, and it's hard to get away from using them. But when we actually come down to it, does our practice actually look like that? Do we as individuals, as possible candidates, actually value that and live that? So one of your previous guests, Steph, I love listening to that episode, because she talked about values, but she didn't just talk about them as in a list of ideal things that live in the drawer in the practice somewhere. You could actually hear that she, as a leader, lived them. They were important to her. She breathed them, and everything that she did, you could hear. I think at one point she said, we check in to make sure that if that's what we're doing, they actually align to which value. Which value does that fit with? So you're actually making those values so important that they become part of who you are. And I think that's, in a lot of cases, what's missing. And I think what that brings about is this gap. And I want to talk about the gap, because this is where I think the issues are. And this is what I'd love to change and address, is there's so many gaps between employers and employees at the moment, I feel. And perhaps there always has been, but I feel like they're wider, like a lot of gaps are. And I think one of those is the desire to fit, like that early stage of the relationship. Promises that are being made to say, we've got the best culture, we've got, we do this, we do that, and yes, come here and you'll get all of that, all the promises that you just alluded to. And the employee, the candidate, hears all these wonderful things and says, this is really important to me. I really, really want to find a place that's going to offer me whatever it is that lights me up, that's important to me. I'm going to give this, and I'm going to provide this level of skill, because this is the skill level that I have. And in return, I'm going to want those qualities that the practice is saying that they can offer me. And quite often they get to the role, they accept the position, and they get to the role, and it's actually nothing like what was promised. It's chaotic. It's the practice owners kind of put this warm body in place and said, here you go, go do your job. That's great, because you said you could do all the skills. So then we end up with this division. Quite often the practice owner or the business owner will, when the relationship ends, which invariably, if there's a mismatch, it does, the practice owner will say, or the business owner will say, they had a crappy employee. And on the other side, the employer is saying, well, that was a crappy experience. They're a terrible practice. And we've got this divide where each is blaming the other. And so you've got both parties that are blaming each other because it wasn't a good match, a good fit. Once again, the metaphor a bit like, a nasty divorce or a nasty separation. So I think it's really time that people try to understand that the self-reflection is the most important part, because I love the saying, and I did write them down so I wouldn't forget them, that your life is a mirror. Your life gives not what we want. Your life gives us who we are. And I also love the saying about, life is a mirror. When you smile at the mirror, it smiles back at you. And in the same way, if you're not smiling at the mirror, the mirror is not smiling back at you. So I think sometimes it's really super important for practices and business owners to look at what the issues are that they're having, that they're not enjoying, and reflect and say, is this who I am? Is this what's being reflected back at me? And really, I think when I first bought a practice, and I'm jumping around a little bit now because I'm super passionate about this. Someone said to me, your practice looks like you. And I thought, that's a really weird thing to say. What do you mean my practice looks like me? At home, I might be, really chilled and relaxed, and, I don't want my practice to look like that. But it's the who you are and who you're being in the practice, who you are and who you're being as a leader of your team. Because no matter what you do, no matter who you delegate it to, your practice is always going to look like you. And I think that's never been truer than now.
Yeah. And I think there is that gap between the employer and the employees, absolutely. And I think one of the most insightful things you could do, or kind of interesting things that you could do as a way of discovery, because an employer can have a perception of what their workplace is like and the environment that they create, but the employees often have a quite different perception. But to be able to have those frank discussions with your team members, what is it like to work here? What could we do to improve it? And what can we do as a practice to be living the values and living the vision of the practice? Because we're about to advertise and we've got to get it right. Before these people start working with us, we need to get it right, so they do step into that environment that we're making assurances about.
Yeah, I think that's so valuable, to actually take the time to sit down and work out what is the goal, what is the direction that our practice is going in. If you don't have a mission, and, I know people glaze over when we talk about mission and vision and values, but they are at the core of everything we do and who we are. And I think if you as a leader, business owner, can't articulate that, your team is certainly not going to be able to articulate that. They're going to articulate their own personal, if they have them, values and core goals. So to be able to actually come together before you actually onboard someone else, or even think about onboarding someone else, to actually understand what that is really vital. And that's a lot of the space that I spend time in, is one, talking about, do you actually know what your goal is? Do you know what your purpose is? Do you know what does your practice look like in 5 years, 10 years? And I don't mean, what does it just look like? Are you walking in the front door and, who are you greeting? And, who of your team is there for you? And, what kind of conversations are you having? Like, down to that kind of level of visualization about what your purpose is. Because I think when you don't have that, then everyone is bringing their own stuff, their own thoughts about, where they want to be. And if it's not aligned to a business, or it's not aligned to the practice, then everyone's off doing their own bits and pieces. And is it any wonder we kind of get a bit disjointed and chaotic? Because everyone's doing the best that they can. Everyone's doing what they think they need to do. Everyone wants to be an amazing employer and employee. So, actually reflecting back on, okay, is this in alignment with my values? Is this alignment with the practice values? I think is super important. Because then, to bring on another individual, what are you bringing them onto? What have they got to align with?
And quite often employees, they've quit a job to come work for you. So even though they're feeling that mismatch and this wasn't what was promised, and I can't see these values being rolled out in any way, they're going to hang around and stay, but be a little bit disappointed. That may eventually lead into a upset or maybe resentment down the track, because they don't want to just jump from one job to another. They know that there's a negative impact on that as well. And this employee, as you say, we all just want to do a good job. And so as individuals, we want to fit in. So despite what we've been told about what the standard is, the responsibilities, the way we work with one another is, when you come on board and it's not what you have been led to believe, you are not going to stand up and say, oh, this is what I was led to believe, let's raise the bar together. You're just going to conform to what is around you, because that's acceptance. You're the newbie into the group. And so in essence, you're sabotaging your own recruitment efforts, because you could be making good people not as good because you've got a not as good environment.
Yeah, that's really powerful. That's great, Julie. I hadn't really put that together, and you can kind of see that, going back to the relationship metaphor, you can kind of see how that plays out and doesn't end well either. because, both people aren't raising each other up in a relationship. They're kind of pulling each other down. So, yeah, no, absolutely.
And I love that we have the both raising each other up. We're both making each other better. I love that.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that's across the board. And I think the other part that you touched on that's super important, particularly for business owners to hear, is that no employee no candidate, no person that's actually looking for a position wants to jump around. People want stability. They want to be able to provide loyalty. They want to feel like they belong. They want to feel connected. So, as much as I quite often hear business owners saying, they're going through people aren't committed anymore. They're not loyal. I think once again, having the understanding that people actually do want to be in a long-term position, generally, depending on what their needs are at the time. And, maybe for someone it's just, a day's cash, just to top up the coffers, and they want to keep their hand in. For someone, it's their career. It's their chosen passion that they actually want to fulfill. There's a heap of evidence around at the moment that people are choosing positions based on culture and leadership. So when they go into a practice quite often, and it is that mismatch where it's kind of like, that's not what was promised in the quick job ad that they've placed, and also the quick interview to say, yes, you've got all the qualifications and you can tick all the boxes. I don't care what's important to you. You're breathing, you're warm, you're nice enough, you'll do. When that doesn't work out, I think, again, people will look at blaming the other side and saying, well, that wasn't what was promised at all. That isn't the case.
And it is recognising that it's such a 50-50 deal. And 50% of the responsibility of having a successful hire certainly rests on the shoulders of the new employee delivering a strong performance. But the other 50% is up to the employer creating the environment where that strong performance can be delivered.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think part of that environment and the need for that is everyone's core, human nature, or the core of every human is to feel connected and feel like they belong. So when they go into a practice and they think, okay, this is ticking all my boxes, they're talking about, being really supportive, everyone's going to be fantastic, team is really important to them. It's not just about, getting the patients in and out. And also something we haven't touched on is the other part of the environment is, of course, the patients, because, at the end of the day, that's what we're all here for. It's the relationship with the patients as well. So it's the promise of this amazing culture, amazing environment, but also the importance of looking after the patients. So when employers potentially don't see that occurring when they start a new position, and it was kind of in lip service that the patients are actually cared for and patients are important to us, and they don't see that play out, I think that's another concern for them. And then it starts to feel like, well, actually, I don't belong here. I don't feel connected, which is at the core, whether we like it or not. We might not be able to articulate what it is. It's not feeling right for us, but it's that core need for connection and belonging. So I think it's really important that we, as we said, ascertain what is important to the practice so that we can actually share that with people. And when we say, our values are, and I think to use your previous guest, Steph's her first one was confidence. Okay, well, how does that play out? Well, we're confident in the techniques that we use to treat our patients. We're confident that we can provide what's needed for our patients. We're confident to be able to, and this in her words, this is my interpretation of her words. We're confident with each other that we can depend on each other. Where does confidence play out in your practice? One of mine is grit and determination. It's one of my core values. And for me, that means when things are really tough, when things are tough in my business, then I'm going to really find my core value and I'm going to play it out. I'm going to live it and really dig in and use that grit and determination. And also when I'm working with a client, I am going to find, and I'm thinking, I can't find this right person, this right employee, this right candidate. Oh, so hard. Sometimes it is really, really challenging or things don't work out. I have to tap into my grit and determination and come back to that because, I need that. So I need to have that value to keep me moving forward. Another one of my core professional values is leadership. So I need to make sure that everything that I do and all the choices that I make and the decisions that I make are coming back to that. Is that going to help me provide leadership? Is that going to help me lead myself? But is it also going to help me lead where I need to lead? Now, if that's on the side of a business owner and supporting them, or on the side of a candidate and supporting them. So I think not only do we have to have and identify what our values are, because most people don't understand what their values are, then there might be other things that are driving them. So having the core values identified, knowing how they play out in every aspect of your life. And there's also, as you would know, there's professional values, there's personal values, there's cultural values. So, you might have 3 or 4 things and say, okay, well, trust is one of my values. Okay, so can trust play out in every area of your life? Probably, because it's a pretty big one. Would grit and determination play out in every area of my life? Possibly not. Possibly not. In a relationship, is it just going to be sheer grit and determination to hang into a relationship? Probably not, Perhaps grit and determination is my professional value and my work value, but not necessarily my personal value. So I think when practices can start to have those kind of conversations, then they can start to work out what's actually driving them.
Yeah, I think you're really highlighting one of the important areas that gets missed with the old-fashioned style of recruitment. That if you were employing to have an additional member of your team, Lyn, to be saying that one of our values here is grit and determination, you're getting like-minded people coming on board. Otherwise, you may start getting people that they are the opposite of grit and determination. No, I like comfort and safety and, and anything that is opposite of that. So then they can become part of your environment and they feel outside of their comfort zone simply because you haven't articulated what your values are. And when you think of, you were mentioning how dental teams are quite different to a lot of other industries, and I totally agree with you, because what other medical profession where you've got so many people so directly involved with that patient experience and helping them to engage in their treatment and having everything explained to them, it's everyone has such an enormous impact. And so they can also be working in environments that can get very stressful, under the pump, pressure. You want to make sure that you're attracting people into those interviews or into that recruitment process, that connection process, who have that grit and determination, resilience, strength, optimism, all the things on top of the regular stuff that we normally include in a job ad, for example, just a standard job ad. So if there are practices out there that think to themselves, I love what Lyn's talking about, I'm not there yet, I don't know my values. Is that part of the way you can work with people, helping them identify all of this?
Yeah, absolutely. So there is actually a process called a values elicitation, which can actually take people through a process to elicit their core values. And, as I said, we could work on professional values and what does the practice need, or we could start with, personal values, and it depends if it's an employee or an employer. Yeah, absolutely. We can certainly take them through that. I think it's really, really important that people identify their values, because if they haven't identified their values, but yet they perceive that they value So let me think of an example. So say if my personal value is fitness. Okay, so I have a personal value of fitness. And I say to people, one of my really strong values that drives me is fitness. I'm pretty sure fitness is a value, can be a value. Or energetic, let's say energetic or energized is the value. So one of my core values is energy, energized. But yeah, I'm spending my days, my weeks, vegging on the couch, watching telly. Probably in that case, the value that I aspire to, which is energized, is not what I'm living. What I'm actually living is perhaps laziness. Perhaps that's the actual value that I'm actually living. Probably wasn't a great example, but you can see how if you're living one value but aspire to another, there's a kind of disconnect and people feel a bit incongruent, and can kind of feel like there's a bit of a separation between, this is what I'm aspiring to, this is what I'm actually living, but they can't articulate. So, okay, well, do I want to live a value of laziness? No, I don't. So, okay, now all the decisions that I make are going to align with the energized value. So now my life's going to shift a little bit because every time I go to sit on the couch, I think, okay, so now I'm living my lazy value. Do I want that? No. So I'm going to move away from that value. And I think when you identify, okay, in a practice, say, is there a value of gossip, maybe? Nobody wants that value in their practice, but is it actually happening? Possibly. Well, if it is, can we identify it? And do we want that as one of our values? No, we don't. Okay, so what are we going to replace that value with and make it a really positive value that's going to take us to wherever our goal is? Because is gossip going to take us to where we need to go? Probably not. So then we need to find that value of collaboration or, open and honest communication. Is that going to be a value that will take us? Probably. So I think it's really important that not only do people identify and state what it is, but also understand, okay, what are we actually living? What are we every day to day? What's actually happening in our practice? And what is that value? Give it a name and say, do we want that? Okay, we'll move on then.
Yeah. And that's where you really do need to have observers of what you do giving you feedback, because we do have blinders on. It's not comfortable to look at ourselves so honestly in the mirror, as you were talking about the mirror before, and to actually see what's looking back at us. And so we need that assistance sometimes and get some feedback from people around us.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think with those blinders, sometimes as practice owners, we can want to surround ourselves with people who are like us. People who, which we've just been saying is great. We want people that are aligned, but we also need people who are going to bring different qualities. So sometimes when we've got those blinders on, we kind of see don't see our blind spots. Yeah, we don't see our areas that we possibly are lacking in. And that's okay. We all lack in them, and recognizing that is also really important. But then bringing in someone that can fill that void. So if you're not a super organized person, perhaps you need someone and you've got a whole heap of, really vibrant, bubbly, outgoing personalities in your practice, but no one that's actually kind of down in the detail and super organized. Maybe that's who you need to recruit in your practice. Now, they might be a receptionist, there might be a dentist, and you think, okay, well, if they're a dentist and I'm trying to recruit a dentist into my practice, then they need to have dental skills. Yeah, they need to have all the dental skills. But perhaps they also need some of those other skills, like are they good? Are they well organized? Because we've got all these other people, professionals in our team that aren't necessarily very well organized. They're a bit chaotic, but they're amazing clinicians. Perhaps we need to now not only look at really good clinicians, but we need to look at people who are super organized as well. So they bring in that quality and help other people to kind of go, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I might try that as well. So I think understanding what drives us as well. There's a really amazing personality profiling, for want of a better word, but it's got a little bit more research behind it. It's been around since the 80s, called the Big Five personality test, or it's otherwise called as the Ocean test. And that's super important to kind of understand the kind of things that, or traits. It's actually based on traits rather than personality profile. It's more on traits. Do you have a lot of people who like change, or do you have some people that don't? What's Ocean is openness, and then you can look at, okay, well, some people really like adventure and change, and they're kind of brave and courageous, whereas some people like to have that comfort and security and stability. You need both in practice. So, doing something like this with the team is really, really fun, but it also helps to highlight where your gaps are as well. The next one is conscientiousness. So, how many people are really super conscientious and, super efficient, like we talked about, or maybe a little bit more extravagant, a little bit more careless, you need that balance as well. The next one's extroversion, introversion. Do you have a balance of those? Agreeableness. Some people are just, it's super important just to please everybody. For some people, they can be a little bit contrary. Again, you need both. And the last one's neuroticism, or sensitivity, or emotional stability or instability. So there's some really good things that you can kind of look at as well. And I work with those with practices and candidates as well.
Gosh, you just mentioning all those traits makes you realise it's just so important to take all this into consideration. And Steph mentioned hiring people on their strengths that are different from your own. Harry Margaret, in one of our conversations with him on a previous podcast, also mentioned hyperdelegation. And, don't get, because I think with the recruitment process, one of the things that can come into play, whether it's conscious or not, is the people in charge of the recruitment think to themselves, is this person going to be easy to manage? And if they're easy to manage, they're probably more like you. And you will quite possibly be missing the mark and not be open to seeing these people that have got, not just, they wouldn't go ahead and perform a task just like you and get similar results. They're going to bring a whole wealth of knowledge, wisdom and experience and get wildly better results from you. But how do I manage them? So maybe on a subconscious level, we're like, oh, this one's stepping outside what I'm comfortable with. So I want to cross that person off the list and I don't know why.
Yeah, my goodness, it's so hard. It's so hard. And I don't say that lightly. It is so hard as a business owner. And I don't like saying things are hard, because it kind of, everything has a solution, and we shouldn't focus on the hardness. We should focus on the solution all the time. But it's tough, there's so much to think about, especially when, as a business owner, most dentists don't have an MBA. Most dentists don't have any business training. And yet they're managing people, they're managing their clinical skills, they're managing their patients. Most are working so hard at the moment that it doesn't leave room for any of these nice things to do. And quite often, when you were talking about, Julie, the need to go back to your team and talk about, what are our values, what is the purpose of this practice, that's a big job, and most practices and most business owners don't have the time to have those nice conversations and sit down. And if they do, their brain's elsewhere. They're not really present. And they'd rather delegate it to one of the other team members. You guys have a meeting, you sort it out, and then, I've got to go off and see a couple of patients. It is super important to get to a place where you can actually work on the business rather than just being in it with your up to your elbows in patients and clinical. And maybe clinical is the space where you want to live and you want to be, and that's fantastic. That's where people are super passionate and doing what they love, hopefully. it's still being mindful that you still are a leader of people who are going to enable you to do that clinical work. So however you need to delegate, however you need to outsource, however you need to provide that environment and leadership is so important. And there's so many amazing people doing amazing things. Lots of people on your podcast, Julie, just are doing amazing things in their space and can really, I think that's the other part, reaching out to seek help where it's needed, when there's so many people who are available to give support.
And I think that, coming into it I think you saying it's hard is an important thing to acknowledge, because number one, otherwise we just feel like we're failing in it all the time. We're just no good at this. But no, it's hard. This is not a simple process. The recruitment space is not simple. Getting your values, established and walking the talk and all the things, it's difficult stuff. But admitting that it's hard, recognizing that it's hard, and recognising that it's different than it ever used to be, trying to attract great team members into your team and having that team work. It just really does allow you the space to go, yeah, it is hard, so I'm going to get someone that does this all the time to really help me. And what she's saying, what Lyn's saying right now is really resonating. I just don't know how to get there. And so the help is there, and that's the key. The help is there.
Yeah, so true. And I think, to go down that other side of, we've been talking about, what's ideal and what needs to be done, to bring in that, yes, it's a real challenge. I think it's also really important to acknowledge, and this is also a lot of the work that, or space that I spend time in, is really supporting people to know that it is okay, that we're stuffing it up and that we're, not getting it right. But then realizing, do we want to continue doing this? Do we want to look back in 5 years' time and going, like I pinpointed that I was having a really hard time 5 years ago, and I'm still having a hard time. Actually, I'm having a worse time now because I didn't do anything about it then. So I think there's recognition, and part of that self-reflection that I spoke about really early, where we're kind of blaming the other party and there's that gap. The divide is only going to be closed by the self-reflection and the acknowledgement that, I don't know what that is, that term, I'm not sure, but falling on your sword and saying, hey guys, I'm not getting this right all the time. Can you help me? Even with your team, for leaders to actually to do that. Of course, so long as they feel safe in their team. And if they've recruited correctly, hopefully they absolutely feel safe with their team, because their team's there. Everyone's got their back, everyone's raising each other up. So when one person's down, the others are hopefully up and they can support that person. That person comes up, the others might be feeling a bit down, that person can raise each other up. So that for me is, team player. When we use those, and sorry, I did inverted commas there, team player is something that is widely overused in the job ads that I can see. Because I think what does it mean to be a team player? I think understanding what that is, and that's going to be different for everybody as well.
For sure.
So yeah, I think the burnout, that's the other really important thing that people are looking for, which is something that's really, really challenging to provide in dental, is flexibility. Everybody's looking for flexibility and needs flexibility in 2024, and will continue to do so. Really, really challenging in dental, because generally, we need someone there at 8:30 in the morning, and we need them to be able to stay until 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock at night. How do we start to look at how can we make it more flexible? And if one person's not there in the morning, a key person is not there first thing in the morning for a huddle, how do we make that work? How does that even happen? So I think being really creative and having the time, creating the time to be more creative around how do we embrace some of these new concepts is really important. And look, there's some people who just don't want anything to be different. They're happy with reactive recruitment. They're happy with the churn. They're happy with, a constant having a different person in, every few months, I don't know how they make that work, but for some people it seems to work. And, is that okay? Sure, it's okay. Different strokes, and it takes all kinds. And I think that's the other really important point that I want to get across is the blame game. That that's he's a terrible employee. He didn't suit me or she didn't suit me. That's fine. It just wasn't a match. But another practice will have that same person, and they're their rock star. They're most outstanding performer they've ever had. And I see that a lot. I see that particularly with younger team members and early career DAs even. One person will ring up and say, "Hey, Lyn, that person that we employed, she's toxic. She's toxic. She's the one that's toxic." And it's okay, that's fine. I absolutely hear what they're saying, and I actually take that on board. But then there might be, and I've done this, repositioned someone or introduced someone or connected someone, because I don't actually place them, but I've connected them with another practice. And, 2 months later, ring back to see how they're going. Absolute star performer, So I think that's really important as well.
Oh, for sure. That's a very, very important consideration to have. And it should go into when you are, ringing references and things like that. If someone says terrible things about this particular employee, just think that's just one piece of data, but there's a whole range of stuff I don't know.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So with Lync Dental, when practices come on board and seek your assistance and guidance, and do recruits who are potentially looking out for work too, do they also contact you? Let us know what the process is like.
Yeah, thanks, Julie. There's a few different levels of Lync Dental. So late January, we launched the Lync Dental website. Now, the Lync Dental website, first and foremost, front-facing, is a dental-specific jobs board that I've worked really, really hard to try and make it very specific for dental, and we're building more and more questions and, making it a difference to other jobs board. But at the moment, it's predominantly a jobs board. And look, anyone can pop up a jobs board, so that's not where my magic power is, I don't think. But certainly, we needed to be able to provide that space for people to just come and self-serve, put their jobs up, and people to be able to apply. What we've actually created for job seekers or candidates is a place where they can actually register and they can begin to create their own profile. And we're looking at, because more than just a resume, we're going to need a lot more than just a resume. We need a profile. So, maybe some photos of your own treatment. If you're a clinician, if you're a dentist and you want to actually start building a portfolio of your work, maybe putting things in it like, what your core values are and explaining some of that, getting to the stage where we're actually starting to create a profile where we can shine and we can actually start to articulate what's important to us. Quite often I'll get... I'll go in order. So they're the two kind of self-serve areas. So practices can go on and build their practice profile all on their own. They can put photos up, they can put videos up, and candidates can actually go in and do the same thing. They can put their resume up publicly so that premium members have a opportunity to go and search their resumes. And I just mentioned the next level, which is a premium membership, where practice can actually join a subscription, a 12-month subscription, and this enables them to have even more connection with the candidates on the platform. And then there's another level where I actually do the recruitment for them. So at this point, premium members can actually purchase a package where they can, for a position, a particular position, so say maybe a dental hygienist role, then I will do all the recruitment for them. So currently at the moment, I'll still advertise on Seek. As I said, we need to use them. They have broad coverage. My reach is, and probably never will be, as great as Seeker Indeed. So we need to use both, but certainly just employing off of Seek, we've already discussed. And I will actually have interviews, and I don't like discussions, trying to move away from the word interviews as well. It's a two-way process. Each person brings their wants and needs, and I can discuss the practice and what their needs are, and hopefully already understanding the practice values a lot more and a lot deeper as well. And then there's another few projects we have in the pipeline, but at the moment we're really focusing on that core of connecting like-minded people. So people can, yes, candidates who want to can come to the website. Certainly they can come to me and have a discussion, although obviously time is short, so quite often it's easier to go to the website and actually build that, and then maybe we can have a discussion after that. So yeah, thank you.
Beautiful. Fantastic. It's such needed work. We have been progressively getting less quality, lower quality results in the old way of doing this. COVID kind of really, and Jill Ford, she's a TAFE teacher for Dental Assisting Cert 3s here in Victoria, and I think she was indicating Victoria, but she said in 2021, between 2021 and 2023, the workforce was reduced by 31% in terms of auxiliary team members. So we need to do things that are different now, and we need to be far smarter around how we do that. And the trial and error, it takes a long time to learn and get to become better at it. I really do encourage people to come to you and gain your assistance, because even though you might be achieving some level of success in the way you're doing it right now, never forget your team are the ones that are delivering your services, your offerings to the patients. So the patient experience is absolutely being compromised if you are allowing the standards to drop, or if you are allowing patients to receive a different experience depending on which team member ends up looking after them. And so that is coming right down to business viability. But talking about the stress, having the stress that's involved in trying to manage a dysfunctional team is enormous. This is our everyday life that we're talking about here.
Yeah, so true, Julie. And it's funny, when I reflect back on my journey, I would never think that I would be in the recruitment space, and once again still getting used to that term and using it. But I think the important thing to me, and my whole purpose in my career, and it still is now, is more accessible oral health care, or access to more oral health care and better oral health care, is what drives me. And I think it's really important that we always come back to that while we're actually here. And for me, that goal will be attained when we actually have happy workplaces, when we are actually all aligned, we're all on the same page, whatever that page is, which is different for everybody. So long as we are all working together, we have, when you go home from being in a place where you feel valued and respected, and you're all aligned, you've had a good day, you're giving each other high fives when you get home to your family and friends and, loved ones around you, or your own space, whatever that is, and you feel content, you feel good. And that's going to create that access to care for more people, because we stay passionate and we stay viable in our profession. So that's what drives me, because when I look, I think, how did I get here as a clinician? Because I love working with patients. I love working hands-on. But yeah, it's still that driving me to do this, and to see people happier and more content in their, wanting to get out of bed in the morning and rock up for work and not dragging themselves. So, really wanting to be there. I think not every day, we have our off days where we'd like to just, chill out at home or do whatever we do. But I think, a whole profession of people who love what they do and are aligned and working together to raise each other up is what's going to make the difference.
Oh, absolutely. Both individually and as at the business and profession that we do, that we are out there serving the public with. Thank you so much, Lyn. This has been such an important and enlightening conversation. I really enjoyed this conversation. I encourage dental teams out there, even if you're not currently looking to recruit, getting those values and recognising the impact of values, contact Lyn about that as well, because it's crucial to your success. So thank you, Lyn. Any final comments?
There is one actually. Just thank you for that. I absolutely love talking about this, obviously. What I do want to say is ultimately Lync Dental is not just recruitment. We are really wanting to build that space where even if you're not looking to recruit actively at the moment, now's the time to actually set aside some time to do exactly that, set up the foundations so that when you are recruiting, it's not reactive, you are being proactive, and, that's also really important. So thank you for making that point. It's not just if you're actively recruitment, it's the whole picture around it to support it.
And would we also be good to encourage team members, whether they're actively looking for a role or not, to register your details there, develop a profile? You just never know when you're going to need this step.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'd love to share with you. We're actually inviting lots of different authors. So, information around our work, our work-life balance. I don't like using that because it's life balance, actually, because work is life balance. We would love to share information that we're getting from different authors that relate to the workforce as well. So connecting and building that community. We'd love to share other people who are doing amazing things, really making it that career hub, I think. Yeah, so definitely please connect with us.
Magnificent. So jump onto lyncdental.com.au. That's LYNC for Lyn Carman. Lyncdental.com.au.
And link means connection. When we say connection, we spell it LYNC. Yeah.
Oh, I love that. It works in so many ways. You were named beautifully for this role.
Thanks, Mum and Dad.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lyn, and hoping you'll come back on, speak more to values maybe in the future.
Beautiful. Thanks, Julie. Thanks for all you're doing and getting people out there and heard. So thank you.
Pleasure. Speak to you next time. If you enjoyed this podcast, then I encourage you to head over to Amina and my website, dentalbusinessmastery.com.au. You will find all the information that you need if you would like to gain our assistance in helping you and your team achieve great success. We've got online courses, consulting programs, the club membership. We also have a whole bunch of tools and resources that are available for free that will help you achieve your practice goals. If you would like to find out more, you can also email us directly at info@dentalbusinessmastery.com.au. Thanks so much for listening.